on the Roth plans, contributions are made after they're taxed, and it will not lower your current taxable income, but it will be you won't be taxed at withdrawal. So those are two different options: tax now, tax later. So you want to just talk to your tax professional, if you already know, just decide how you want to do that. And that's it for that slide, number 12. Okay, so why do you want to invest in a 403b and a 457b? We talked about the third or fourth prong of the retirement income stool. There's lots of different reasons, but obviously you want to have 100% of your income at retirement. But if you invest early, you can take the benefit of compound interest, which we'll talk about in the next slide. You can ensure your long-term financial security by investing in a 403b. You'll have the supplemental income at retirement. You can contribute on a pre-tax basis if you want. And then the next slide is slide 13 is our compound interest slide. So this basically illustrates it's never too late to start. I think Dan put that in the chat at the very beginning. I personally started too late. I started like at 49. But it doesn't really matter when you start, just as long as you start, and then you'll have more than you had if you didn't start. But one of the best ways to do that is to start early, and that when you take advantage of compounding interest, it means that the interest that you make on your investment is added to the principal amount you put in, and you earn interest on the interest. And if you invest early, it adds up to a lot, as this diagram shows. So if your retirement goal was $250,000 or $500,000, depending on your age, at age 25, you can invest $209 a month to get to $500,000. And at age 55, you need to invest $3,100 a month to get to $500,000. So it shows that you can get to $500,000 either way, but it's much better if you start early. And I know we'll talk about this in a little bit. There are, and Dan says catch-up strategies for late savers, which I need to look at. So just a couple things. So it's never too late to invest, and it's a lot more fruitful to start early. So then just to kind of wrap up why you should save, there's always a reason not to do something, right? So reason one, why don't people invest in 403b plans? Reason one, I already have a pension. Well, we kind of talked about that. Your pension isn't going to give you 100%. So if you want to get closer to 100%, the best way to do that is to have other income streams. And one great income stream would be a 403b or a 457b. Another reason would be I can't afford it right now. Like say you have student loans or there's other financial commitments that you have to make. Even if you start really small, like if you're just starting out, you're a brand new teacher, even if you start out with just a little tiny, $50 a month, that is going to grow over time. And then as you get your pay raises, you can put a little bit more in. And before you know it, you got a nice nest egg when you retire. And then reason three, I don't know enough about it. If you're here, you're trying to find out, so that really isn't a reason. And you're kind of taking that first step, and some of you may already have invested in your 403b, but it's good that you're all here, and we're glad to see you. You can research more about what your 403b plans and 457b plans are for your school district at TSACG, or you can speak with your Human Resources Tech, Maureen, which is listed on tsacg.com. Okay, next slide is, now we're going to get into more of the nuts and bolts of what is in a 403b and a 457b, what type of investments, what kind of questions to ask, some of the fees that are associated with these kinds of investments, and what to watch out for. So in a 403b and a 457b, you're limited to mutual funds and annuities by tax code. So the IRS has determined that these are the only two types of investments, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of variety, because there's a lot of different types of mutual funds And there are when you look at annuities, there's 3 different types of annuities, and there's several different things you can do within those that will give you some choice and variety. Next slide, slide number 16. So what is a mutual fund? Okay, so a mutual fund pulls money from investors and invests the money into stocks, bonds, short-term debt, money markets, or other securities. Mutual funds have shares that can be purchased or redeemed. Investors can buy shares directly from the fund or through a broker for the fund. And in this case, you'd be investing in a predetermined, pre-selected investment that's offered by that's been selected, a vendor that's been selected by your school district. So there will be a set list of what you can invest in. And that was what I talked about earlier when I said you had 15 or 16 different vendors you could choose from for each different type, the traditional or the Roth 403b, 457. For mutual funds, the combined holdings of stocks, bonds, or other assets the fund own are known as a portfolio. Each investor in the fund owns shares which represent part of these holdings. All mutual funds, and this will be true for variable annuities too, have costs that lower your investment return. So it's important to shop around, know what those fees are before you invest. Here are the different types of mutual funds. There are bond funds that are obviously invest primarily in bonds or other type of debt securities. There are many different types of bonds, so risks and rewards will vary. There are stock funds, and that's your Apple, IBM type stocks. And those are subject to market risk and will fluctuate with the ups and downs of the stock market. So when you hear the Dow Jones Industrial Average, that's your volatility marker, and so when you hear about that, they're talking about stocks. And the good thing about mutual funds, though, is you can, when it comes to stock funds, is you can actually go by sector. So if you wanted to do healthcare sector, you could get a mutual fund with just healthcare stocks, or you can do balanced, and we'll talk about that in a second. That will invest in many different types of sectors in the stock market. So there's a little bit more of a hedge, so you're less risk. Money market funds are basically cash, and they can dip below. Usually they have a net asset value of $1, so they're usually a cash equivalent. Sometimes they can dip below, but it's very rare. Their returns are very low, and it's basically a way to maintain your principal if you don't want to take on the risk. Balanced funds invest in stocks, bonds, and money market, and they are more diversified. So you can they'll either be diversified among the 3 areas, stock, bonds, and money markets, or they'll be diversified within the area of stocks, bonds, or money markets. Target date funds, this is personally, I like target date funds because, especially for retirement, because they are designed with a particular retirement date in mind. And almost every big mutual fund company offers them. They are designed to be long-term investments. They have a fund allocation that grows more conservative over time. So the younger you are, the more risk that the fund will have. And as you get older, they will get closer to a guarantee of principal and income stream type deal. So, and you can they're called target date funds or life cycle funds. Next slide is, what is an annuity? So annuity is an insurance product, and some annuities are insurance products and securities, and some are just insurance products, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. But generally, it's a contract between you and an insurance company. It usually requires the insurer to make payments so that you immediately or in the future you get payouts or payouts over time. And there are 3 types: variable, fixed, and indexed. And I just want to pause here for a second. So mutual funds are regulated by the SEC, period. Annuities, only variable annuities are regulated by the SEC. The other 2, fixed and indexed, are regulated by your state insurance agency. And that's important to note. So there aren't the same, there's a different level of scrutiny with those. So to tell you more about a variable annuity, It's an investment account, sort of like a mutual fund account where you can make contributions and they're directed to certain investment options. And that could be stocks, bonds, money market, like we talked about just a minute ago. But most of them include insurance features such as death benefits, and that makes them different from other insurance products and investment options. And sometimes, since it's a combination of both, and those additional features cost more money, so you'll be paying extra for those. The returns of a variable annuity depend on how the underlying investments perform. It also depends on how expensive they are, how much you pay in fees. So the value of your, what they call a contract, will vary depending on the performance and the investment options that you choose. And I just want to remind everybody that for all of these types of products, you can go to investor.gov, the website I mentioned a little bit ago, that's run by the SEC, and it's an investor education outreach where you can go and you can look up different types of things that you want to learn more about. It also has a way that you can check your investment professional, but I'll get to that in just a sec. Are we slide 20? So fixed annuities and indexed annuities, like I mentioned, are not regulated by the SEC. And a fixed annuity is something that gives you a minimum rate of interest and a fixed amount of periodic payments. And there's a typically less fluctuation in, you're not worrying about your underlying investments and how they perform. And an indexed annuity is kind of a hybrid of the variable annuity and the fixed annuity, where it has features of securities and insurance products, but it's tied to a stock market index, such as the Standard & Poor or the Russell 1000, but they are regulated by the State Insurance Commission. And the issue with indexed annuities is sometimes it's very difficult to determine what's in the investment. So you want to make sure that if you decide to go with an indexed annuity contract, you ask a lot of questions and make sure that you have written information that tells you what you're investing in and what the expected, what they predict performance will be. Let's see, investment fees, slide 21. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit ago when I mentioned that fees will kind of cut into your investment a little bit. So everything you buy, everything you own, and everything you sell, there's a fee associated with it. So just remember that when you buy an investment, when you own it, while you own it, and when you sell, there's probably going to be some sort of fee attached. For when you're buying an investment, you're going to probably be paying commissions or sales loads, and that means you're basically paying a fee to purchase the investment. There are different types of sales loads. Those are associated with mutual funds. Some of them can be front end when you pay up front. Some can be back end when you're assessed a charge at the end. And then there's some that are no load, which typically, they're called institutional class. Typically, you don't pay as many fees. They still may have fees, but they're going to be smaller than the front end and back end. And so when you're investing in mutual funds, you kind of want to understand what those fees are going to be. When you sell, variable annuities have surrender charges, and mutual funds have redemption fees, and they're sometimes on a sliding scale. So sometimes there's a requirement that you own an investment a certain amount of time before you can redeem it, and that's especially true with fixed and indexed annuities. Sometimes those redemption periods or those surrender periods can be 15 years long. So you buy something, you're not really happy with it, you're kind of stuck with it for 15 years, you're going to pay to get out of it. And that's not ideal. So you want to understand what your surrender period is when you buy an annuity. Redemption fees, kind of hard to get away from with a mutual fund. When you sell a mutual fund, you're going to probably pay a redemption fee. But it will probably, if you're not in a surrender period, it will probably be less than if you were in an annuity. When you own, so there are investment advisory fees if you're using an investment advisor to purchase your investments. So you get a small annual fee that's based on the value of your portfolio. So if the value of your portfolio goes up, you're going to pay your advisor more. There's also annual operating expenses and annual variable annuity fees, and these are just fees that they're charging you to maintain the investment, to rebalance the account, distribution fees, management fees, that type of thing. And then you might be charged a variable annuity fee to administer the variable annuity. And there may be additional fees with if you have additional insurance riders on those investments. So it's a lot. There's a lot of fees that are attached to your investments. And the reason why we're spending so much time on this is so that you're aware and that there are fees, and that you can make sure that you know what they are, because there are some investments cost more than others, and there may be something better for you that isn't as expensive, and it's important for you to try to find out what that is. So fees, like I just said, fees and investments, we're on slide 22. Fees and expenses can be different from investment product to investment product. Small differences in fees translate to large differences in returns over time. Investment products with higher fees must perform better than investment products with lower fees to generate the same returns. And we're going to show you a slide. This slide when I first saw the slide, it blew my mind. I knew it was true. I just didn't realize how true it was. So depending on, if you look at this chart, the blue line is showing a 1/4 point annual fee, the red line is showing a 1/2 point fee, and the green line is showing a full point fee. And as you can see, at the end of the investment period, it's about 30 grand. And that, it doesn't seem like a lot, a 1/4 point, 1/2 point, full point. It doesn't seem like a big difference, but it can add up to tens of thousands of dollars over time. And so it's important to remember that fees and expenses can take a huge bite out of your returns, but you got to make sure that you understand and compare the fees that you'll be charged, so you kind of know what you're getting into, and it possibly could save you a lot of money in the long run. Okay, slide 24. So I'm going to just kind of touch briefly on some of these different fees for mutual fund and variable annuities again, just to kind of recap. So for mutual funds, your transaction fees are commissions and markups, sales loads, and surrender charges. So the first two are going to be when you buy, and the second two are going to be when you sell. So remember, you can do a sales load at the front or the back. So when you buy or when you sell, you're possibly going to have surrender charges. Your ongoing fees are investment advisory fees and annual operating expenses. And it's really similar for variable annuities. I'm on slide 25. The surrender charges are when you sell, administrative fees are when you own, underlying fund expenses are when you own, sales load charges could be at the front or the back, and transfer charges are at the end when you're moving into a different investment. So I know it looks like a lot, and it is a little scary, but when you ask the questions and you start learning about it, it's not as scary, and you'll find that there is a benefit to knowing, and you'll get the best thing for your own personal investment needs. So to recap on the fees, slide 26, fees and expenses can take a huge bite out of your returns. Be sure you understand and compare the fees that you'll be charged, and it will save you a lot of money in the long run if you do those things. And then we're going to get into more about how you can protect yourself when you're investing, what to do up front. So the biggest thing you can do, the first two things on slide 27, the most important thing is to research your investment product and research your financial professional. Be aware of common persuasion tactics and red flags. And what that means is don't get pressured into buying anything you're not ready to buy or you don't feel you know enough about. And we'll talk about lunchroom tactics and that sort of thing in just a second. So the biggest thing is before you invest, make sure you ask questions and then check your own resources, read your prospectus, check in the prospectus, just do all those things so you know exactly what you're getting. And it can seem daunting, but once you get into it, it's not that bad, and it's better to protect yourself. I often talk about, like, when you're going to buy a refrigerator or a car, you spend months researching it. And when you go to buy an annuity or a mutual fund or 403b, you have somebody come into a lunchroom and hand you a piece of paper that's pre-filled out. You do no research, and it's basically $500,000. So you want to put the same amount of effort into researching your investments that you do into researching your refrigerator purchase or your car purchase. Okay, so we're on to slide 28. So here we go. Ask questions. Ask questions of your investment product and sales agent. Ask and do your own research. Check. Most important thing. So what you want to ask, we're on slide 29, is the investment product registered, and what fees will I pay? I think I've hammered home the fee thing. I think Dan will probably talk about that too. And the other question you want to find out is if your salesperson is registered and how that person gets paid. I know, Dan, you're going to tell them the truth. So the next slide on slide 30 is you want to ask, what fees will I pay? What fees will I pay to purchase, hold, and sell this investment? What are all the fees relating to this account? Number 31. Again, will those fees appear clearly on my account statement or my confirmation? And I will just stop here with this one. If you see something on your account statement or your confirmation that does not make sense to you, do not hesitate to call the number on that statement and get an explanation. And if you're not satisfied, keep asking the question and don't give up. The other thing you want to ask yourself is, what products can meet my financial objectives at a lower cost, even if you don't sell those products? So what sometimes can happen is a salesperson can be motivated by their own commission and want to sell you something that costs more so that they get paid more, even if there's something available that will cost you less and be better for you. So you want to make sure that you're not getting sold something that's too expensive for your needs. Let's see. I think the headline here is just to make sure that you understand the fees you're going to be charged. Okay, so we're going to talk again about surrender charges, contingent deferred sales load, and redemption fees. So you want to ask, is there a penalty if I sell? And sometimes there is not, but most of the time there is. And what you want to know is how much that's going to cost you. Sometimes you will have a salesperson try to convince you to switch from one investment to another. And part of that comes at a cost. Let's say you're not out of your surrender period, and maybe you shouldn't be switching yet. Maybe you need to wait a couple more years. So you want to make sure you know that when you sell something, you're not going to get hit with a large surrender charge before you buy something else. Okay, we're on slide 33. How are we on time, Erin? Okay. All right, so before you invest, you want to ask about variable annuities. Again, ask about fees and expenses, ask about the different features, ask for a copy of the prospectus. If there isn't one, ask questions until you understand. And also another headline is any investment that you make should be suitable to your personal situation. And that is really important, that you understand your own personal needs before you start looking into what you're going to purchase. Slide 34. So this is more focused on your investment professional. Some investment professionals maybe don't have your best interest in mind. Most of them do, but you don't know when you meet them which one they are. So you want to make sure that you ask them some questions. How long have you been in the business? Are you licensed or registered with the SEC? Are you registered with the state regulator? Are you registered with FINRA? And all three of those, your state securities regulator, FINRA, and the SEC, are all the entities that regulate those people that sell those products to you if it's a variable annuity or a mutual fund. Another thing you want to ask them is if they have a disciplinary history with a government regulator or any customer complaints. And the reason why you want to know that is because if they have a expansive disciplinary history, they probably don't have your best interests in mind. Number 30, slide 35. Also ask them how they get paid, if they're going to receive commissions or fees or ongoing fees. Once again, do you make more money for selling me one product over another? Do you get any other type of compensation for selling me this investment product? That's not as typical in these scenarios, but it could happen, and you want to make sure that you know how you're compensating your salesperson. And a lot of these investments, I think I mentioned this at the boot camp last year, a lot of these investments, you don't need someone to help you purchase them. If you don't necessarily have to go through a sales agent. You can probably self-direct most of these through your selection process on that tsacg.com. And that's where you do your own you can do your own research, you can select your own investments. But if it's not a problem to have someone help you. If you need an investment advisor or broker-dealer, or registered rep to help you, that's fine. Just make sure that you understand how they're compensated. So we're getting into our check portion of this. And so I wanted to give a little plug to our investor.gov, which is slide 36. This has a lot of information about different products, how to invest, that sort of thing. But it also has, I think, a really nice feature. It's how to research your investment professional before you invest. And another place you can check for your investment professional is a website from FINRA called BrokerCheck. So slide 37. Check your employer's 403b plan documents, and I checked before we did the presentation, and they're on the tsacg.com. The plan documents, the investment products, the providers, the enrollment forms, all that stuff is on that website. Make sure that, and there's something called a meaningful notice that your school district sends out every year. Erin, I don't know if you know about that, or if you know when that goes out. Typically that goes out in February. I don't know when it goes out for you guys. And that is something that describes the plan and what your options are, and a lot of other helpful, useful information. But one thing I want to say is, your employer, perfect. Thank you. Erin's holding it up. One thing your school district is selecting the vendors, or the administrator that's administrating the plan selects the vendors. That doesn't mean they've been vetted. It doesn't mean that they have gone through a rigorous vetting process. So that's why all of these things about asking and checking and knowing and researching is important, because you shouldn't look at these vendors as being endorsed, or these products as being endorsed, because they've just been selected as part of a kind of a cafeteria style plan. Okay, so let's go on to number 38. So we talked about FINRA a minute ago. So you can check all the mutual funds that you want to invest in at the FINRA Mutual Fund Analyzer. And you can put that into Google. You just put in FINRA Fund Analyzer into Google, and you can compare different mutual funds. You can also look up the prospectus. There's something called a summary prospectus for all mutual funds, so you don't have to read the prospectus that's like 7 inches tall. You can just read the 3 pages of the summary prospectus to get an idea about what the mutual fund does, invests in, how it works, what the fees are, expenses, and all that. You can also go to their website and look it up. And then for the variable annuities, it's similar, and we'll go to slide 39. One of the things that I think is most important about a variable annuity is knowing how they work and getting the details, finding out how much they cost, and reading a prospectus if it's offered. Um, and just like I said before, make sure you ask the questions until you're satisfied with the answers. Don't feel like because you don't understand it, you shouldn't be asking the question. You should always, always understand. Just like that refrigerator in that car, this is a lot more money. Number 40, slide 40. We're going to do another plug for investor.gov. You can check up the license and registration of your particular investment advisor, whether they have disciplinary actions, customer complaints, and previous employment. You can also do this at BrokerCheck. That's one word, brokercheck.com. And you can type in the name of the company and the investment professional and get your background on them. Number 41. So the SEC about 4 years ago put together a page, an investor page for teachers. And so if you go to investor.gov/teachers, a lot of the stuff I've told you about today, in fact, everything I've mentioned today is on that page. And you just click through and read about stuff. There's tons of information on there, more information than you could possibly want. So on slide number 42, we also have a spotlight page for teachers that is sec.gov/teachers, and that is where we have what Erin's holding up, the guide for teachers. This is actually in digital format on sec.gov/teachers, and you can also get that from Erin. And Erin, if you need more, let me know. And that is super helpful. It goes through soup to nuts, even some of the basic things about financial security that have nothing to do with investing. It talks about 403bs, pensions, and all sorts of stuff. Some other resources are the Internal Revenue Service. If you want to read about 403bs and 457bs and how they should work, you can go to these websites for the Internal Revenue Service. And one thing I wanted to mention is we are here, the SEC is here to help you if you have a problem. So if you have something that you want to get help with, you can call our investor assistance line at 800-732-0330. And I believe Lisa Roberts probably has the number, Erin, for the local Florida office. So if you want to share that with your constituents, I think that's almost a better first step, because your local folks know your people better than the people back in DC. But you can always call investor assistance, and that is it for now. And if you guys have any questions, just let me. I see it. Liddy Phils Amy has raised a hand.
Yeah, Liddy, if you want to unmute yourself, feel free to, or you can put your question in the chat, whichever you prefer.
I accidentally pressed on that. I'm sorry.
No problem. If anybody else has a question for Jill, you can raise your hand or put it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to start getting a few things.
I do. I just can't find the hand yet. Oh, there it is.
Go ahead.
All right. Sorry about that. I just had a quick question on the three types of annuities. Aren't there guaranteed annuities also?
That would be the fixed. Those are the guaranteed. Those are the guaranteed.
Those are the guaranteed. All right. That's. And when you ask your advisor the questions, like, are the fees going to be on there? And because I've had this in the past where I've asked that, and then when the paperwork comes back, it's not there, and there's really nothing you can do. You just go, oh, they're not there. What's to stop them from just saying, oh yeah, they're on there? Oh, my bad. Sorry, I thought they were going to be on there.
No, I think, and Dan's probably going to get into this a little bit more than I can, but I think this is when I say keep asking questions until you get the answer that satisfies you, that's exactly what I'm talking about. If they tell you something is in there that you clearly don't see, ask for the page number and paragraph. I mean, don't settle for, yeah, it's in there, don't worry about it, because that is how fraud happens.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
Okay, I have one more. So,
Okay.
on the surrender charges, are a lot of those like they keep rolling over? I think I asked Aaron this once, that every time you make a contribution, then from that point the time starts again. And
No, so it's from the date that you purchase. So, and it depends, and they apply both to mutual funds in some cases. They're called CDSC charges in mutual funds, and surrender charges for variable annuities. It's a sliding scale, and I wish I could share my screen and I would show you, but so say for example you have a 5-year surrender period. It's going to be high the first year, and it's going to go down. Let's say it's 7 years. It could be as high as 7% the first year, and it might go down 1% every year until you get to that 8th year and it's 0, and then you don't have to worry about the surrender charges anymore. So just that there's 2 things you need to know with the surrender charge. First thing is, how long is the surrender period, and what is the percentage of the surrender charge for each year. And there may be situations where you need the money and you're going to have to take the hit on the surrender charge. It's just you never know what the situation is going to be, right? But it's good to know what that is before you buy it. Right.
I guess what I was asking, I didn't say it the right way. Let's say I'm contributing $100 per paycheck.
Okay.
And then I up that to $200. Does that start a new process of surrender time? No. Okay.
Well, if you're buying a new investment, yeah. But if you're sticking with the same choices, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, does anybody else have a question for Jill? Otherwise, we will have another Q&A session after Dan speaks. All right, and if you've got anything else for Jill, just like I said, you can put it in the chat as we're going on. I'll continue to try to answer some questions in the chat, and Dan will have a Q&A at the end of his session as well. But meanwhile, I want to thank Jill tremendously for joining us. Again, she's in the San Francisco office of the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, so it's we're incredibly fortunate that she's able to share her time with us today. So I will share with you any of the details of anything that she shared with us from the slide deck. Like I said, if anybody wants this guide for teachers that the SEC produces, it's a wonderful production that's also available digitally, but I have a box of them that I'm happy to pony over to you if you just want to email me separately and let me know. So big thank you, Jill. Hopefully we'll see you again this summer for our financial literacy boot camp. We are very hopeful to have you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. With that being said, I'm going to transition over to Dan Otter here in a moment. I wanted to, and I'm going to save it for the end. I was going to clarify some of the things that Jill said that are specific to our district, but I know Dan's going to do some of that. But I wanted to real quick put out a real Q&A or a quick poll, because I'm curious, and I meant to ask this at the beginning. I'm curious how many people on this call, and this will help also guide Dan's discussion a little bit, but I'm curious how many people on this call have already a 403b or 457b account. So if you can, I've just launched a poll. The poll is anonymous, so you don't have to worry about your name being included on it. But if you can answer that poll that's just in front of you right now, I'd appreciate that. Just I'd like to get an idea of what we're working with. Got a pretty mixed bag coming in. Oh, wow, we're almost 50-50. I'll show you the results here in a moment. Yeah, so we're very, very split here. You can see, I don't know if you can see those results, but hopefully you can. But you can see that 7 people answered yes, they currently have a 403b account or 457b account. 6 people said no, and 1 is I don't know, which is fair. I'm going to assume a lot of people aren't sure if they've opened up one or not. So that's interesting. And then how many of you, if you have one, that is, which is 7 or 8 of you, this is what I find most people aren't aware of, is how many of you know what the investment type is within your 403b account. Do you just heard Jill talk about it's either an annuity or it's a mutual fund account. So do you know? So vote on that real quick on that poll you saw. I'm curious to see what they come up. You should be able to see that coming on the screen. Looks like 3 of you said mutual fund, 2 of you said I don't know. I will say this, for those of you who said mutual fund, look into it. Some of you may have mutual funds that may be wrapped in a variable annuity. I know this from having worked with a lot of teachers on these. A lot of them, when they ask me about them, they'll come and show me statements. I'll ask them what they have, and what they think they have is much different than what they actually have a large percentage of the time. So I would just say, if you think you have an annuity, if you think you have a mutual fund, or if you don't know, look into it. And yes, as Dan said, the biggest tell is if you think you have a mutual fund and it's with an insurance company, you have a variable annuity. You're invested in a mutual fund through a variable annuity, which Dan may talk about a little bit today, but that's more for probably the next session on the 13th. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dan here. Jill did a really good job of giving us the cold hard facts, right? That's why I wanted Jill to lead it off. She just gave us the cold hard facts of the 403b. It's as well as anybody can do it. And now Dan's going to do a good job of giving you the cold hard truth. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to, if you don't know Dan Otter, he's the founder of a wonderful nonprofit that does education and advocacy called 403bwise.org. So go for it, Dan.
Thank you, Aaron. I said it in the chat, but I want to say it again so you all hear it. You are so lucky to be in your school district because of Aaron. Aaron's main job, as he mentioned, is to help students become financially literate. He takes it upon himself to share this kind of information with the employees. So we always joke, we wish we could clone Aaron. So every school district had an Aaron. And also, I just want to thank Jill again. Scott and I, the co-founder, my partner in 403b Wise, he and I have interacted with Jill and her amazing team. And I have to tell you, it is really cool to have the SEC focused on the K-12 403b. We need all the allies we can get to fix this broken plan. So she gave you a great introduction and overview of the 403b and the 457b. I'm going to make it more personal. I'm going to talk about your 403b and 457b investment choices. So this will be aimed at your available vendors. So first of all, I'll say it again. Happy 403b Day, April 3rd. What's wild about this is also my first child's birthday. So I guess it was meant to be that I would be in the 403b arena. But before I was in this arena, I was an elementary school teacher. That is me when I was much younger, had much darker hair. And this is in Southern California at a wonderful elementary school called McKinley Elementary. And this is where I heard about the 403b. It was my first year on the job way back in 1992. Oh my God, I can't believe how long ago that was. But kids had left for the day. As a first year teacher, you're desperately trying to get ready for the next day's instruction. So I'm at my desk. I'm just kind of panicking because I have all these papers to grade. Plus, I had all this planning to do because as a new teacher, I was not very far ahead of my kids. And a woman knocks at my classroom door and she pokes her head in and she says, "Do you care about your financial future?" Wow. Jarring statement to hear anytime, but especially when you are in your classroom. And as I always say when I tell this story, I think there's only one answer. Yes, I care about my financial future. Well, of course, she took that as an invitation to come into my room, and she started talking about how she helped the teacher next door, the teacher down the hall. She started talking about these investments. I had no idea what she was talking about. The only thing I knew, I had a vague notion of a pension. Aaron touched on this idea that if I taught for 20 to 30 years, I would retire with a percentage of my salary. And since this was a job change for me from journalism where I had no retirement plan, that felt pretty great to know that I would have a pension. But anyway, I listened to this woman politely and I said, "Look, if I'm interested, I will get in touch with you." Well, lucky for me, I did not, because I began to self-educate myself. And what I learned was very troubling. She was trying to sell me high cost investment products, which yielded a large commission to her. At the same time, I started learning about a much better way to invest directly into low cost companies like Vanguard and Fidelity Investments. And as I began to dig even farther into this issue, I found out it wasn't just a problem at my school district, or California. This was a national problem. So in 2000, I launched the website, and we were called 403bwise.com at the time. And the whole goal was education and advocacy. And I ran that website in conjunction with teaching elementary school, middle school. I earned a master's, and then I got a doctorate, and I started teaching at the college level. And in 2016, an amazing thing happened, in our opinion, for 403b advocacy. The New York Times ran a series of articles on the little old K-12 403b. My partner, Scott Downhauer, and I had given the reporters a lot of background material. So they were very kind to mention us, to mention 403b Wise. And as you can imagine, site traffic just exploded. And we really started getting a lot of attention. To our great fortune, a gentleman named Tim Ranzetta, who is a philanthropist from the Bay Area, who is the founder of a fantastic nonprofit, Next Gen Personal Finance. He read these articles and he reached out to us and said, "I am horrified to hear that the very teachers I'm trying to help learn how to teach personal finance." And he's also working with states to get financial literacy a required class. He and his team were instrumental in the Florida law that Aaron referenced about the coming requirement to have financial literacy. Tim was horrified. He said, "Is there anything I can do to help you guys?" And thanks to him, I was able to leave my job. I was a university administrator, and I was able to leave that job, and I got to run 403b Wise full time. We became a nonprofit in 2016. 2019. So I now do this job full time. Just like Jill had a disclaimer, we have a disclaimer. Nothing presented or discussed is to be construed as investment or tax advice. This can be secured from a vetted fiduciary advisor. Quick warning, the folks that you're interacting with in your school district are not fiduciary advisors. They are salespeople. They like to say that they are financial professionals and advisors, but they are not. They are salespeople. at a minimum, your advisor should hold a CFP. This stands for Certified Financial Planner. This means that they have pledged to put the interest of the client above themselves. It's pretty wild that you have to have a special designation to be held to this standard, but that is one of the big problems with the financial industry. So I'm going to show you ways that you can protect yourself and ensure that you are working with the right kind of advisor. Okay, here is our agenda. Are you making the $306,382 mistake? I'm going to quickly go over the 403b, 457b. I'm going to do it side by side because they have a lot of similarities. I'm going to show another example of the impact of fees. And then we're going to look specifically at your vendor choices, the companies your district makes available to you. I'll share a couple resources, and I will do my best to answer your questions. One warning, my partner, Scott, who is a fiduciary advisor, steeped in knowledge around all investing, he usually takes most of the questions because he is so knowledgeable. So I will do my best. But if I can't answer a question, I'll give you a resource you can use to probably get that question answered. All right, let's get into it. 2 Palm Beach County teachers. They're both age 22, so they're just out of college, just got their teaching credentials. They both earn, and I believe this is the new starting salary, $49,133. They realize that it's smart to begin investing in a 403b early. So they each invest 10% of their salary. They both invest in the same type of investment. They both earn a 7% annual return on average over 38 years. They contribute until age 60, but something peculiar happens. One accumulates more than $500,000. Wow, that's a pretty good sum of money. But the other accumulates over $823,000. Same start date, same amount to contribute, same return, same type of investment, but a very big difference. Why? Going to give you a moment to think about that. I'm going to work on my teacher wait time. If you would like to put an answer in the chat. Leslie's coming in with a really strong answer here. Okay. Aaron, are you sure this group hasn't already gone through this presentation? Because I
think they might have. These answers are too good.
Sharp cookies is what I think. Okay, we will come back in a moment and we will look at this in a little more detail. All right, Aaron talked about the importance of your pension, the 3-legged stool. There's also the 4-legged stool. It can be, but the 403, we have this saying, we call it teach, and you can see I put in quotes, retire rich formula. My definition of retiring rich is to do an enriching career and to retire comfortable. And teaching is a career that I very much enjoyed, very much found enriching. But what I also liked about it was all of the retirement plans available to me. Pension, 403b, 457b. And again, I realize we don't get huge salaries, but we do have a lot of opportunities to save money. So real quick, just want to do a Venn diagram. My favorite teaching tool, I've used it with elementary kids and I use it with my college students. I still teach a personal finance class through the university I used to be an administrator at, the University of Redlands. So these are the updated contribution numbers for 2023. So you can contribute up to $22,500 in either plan. If you were an old person like me, you can contribute an additional $7,500 to each plan. You can do this on a pre-tax basis. Jill touched on this. Pre-tax will lower your taxable income now. An after-tax basis, Roth contribution won't lower your taxes now. But the beauty is in retirement, when you take that money out, you won't pay taxes. And If I was starting my career in teaching now, I think I would really use the Roth method. You can also invest in mutual funds. We believe this is the best way to save. I am not a fan of fixed annuities in a 403b. I'm not a fan of variable annuities in a 403b or 457b. If you are 59 and a half and you are still working, you can withdraw from either of these plans. And you get to contribute to both. You can also take out a loan. Our advice would be try to avoid that because you're borrowing from your retirement savings. But if you have no other method, this is a nice provision to have available. Probably the biggest reason, the biggest advantage of the 457b is that if, let's just say, you leave the profession or you leave your employer, and I'm not trying to get you to leave teaching, we need good teachers. I am not trying to get you to leave your district. You've got a great district, but let's just say you do leave before turning 55. You can access your 457b money tax penalty free. There's no early withdrawal penalty. Okay, so if you take out $5,000, you won't be penalized on that. You will pay taxes on that amount. It'll just look like at the end of the year that you made $5,000 more dollars. So this is a nice provision if you're someone who thinks that maybe you might not teach, into your 60s. Okay. Now with the 403b, the only way you can access the money is if you retire at age 55 or later. And that's when there's no 10% early withdrawal penalty. Jill went over this, and I'll just do this real quick. And again, I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad because this is a very big number that you could invest each year. Now, in many cases, this is more than a teacher's salary. I just want you to know what's available because you might have a spouse who has an income you can live on, or you're later in your career, maybe your house is paid off, your kid's college maybe is paid off, maybe you come into inheritance. And if that's the case, you could live on the inheritance and really stuff your 403b and 457b with money. So this is what's possible. So up to $22,500 in the 403b, same amount in the 457b, and then you take advantage of these two age 50 catch-up contributions. So I know we have a lot of sharp teachers there, math teachers. Any guess what this total is? A little mental math if you want, or you're welcome to use a calculator. I can't tell. And you could put it in the text thread we have going. Yes. Boom. Ding, ding, ding. Now that's a ton of money. Thank you, Leslie and Jamie. I get it, but I just want you to know what's possible. All right. Here are the financial companies your district makes available to you. If you're like I was when I was a teacher, this didn't mean anything to me. I had no idea what this is. This just looked confusing and weird names. Didn't know anything about it. Problem is, this is how many teachers around the country feel. So our website, 403bwise.org, about a year ago, started doing something that is a little bit insane. We are endeavoring to post the vendor lists of every school district in the country. There are more than 14,500. And to date, we've got 3,700. We actually just got every single vendor list for the state of California where I live, which is about 800 school districts. And we are now going through that data. So we hope pretty soon we'll be able to say that we have more than 5,000 districts. So not only are we going to put the vendor lists, we're going to grade those vendor lists. So I'm going to show you the grade that your district got in a moment. But I want to explain the system briefly. So my partner came up with this. Scott did. It's brilliant. We're using a traffic light system to rate the vendors. So just like when you're driving and you come to a red light, stop. Okay, do not proceed. It is dangerous. You can get T-boned if you go into that intersection. Now, yellow light, proceed with caution. It could be safe, but boy, you better look left, right, left again and proceed cautiously. If it's a green light, go on through. Okay, so let's look at widely available companies in the 403b. So here is our red or naughty list, and we break it up into 3 categories: red plus, red, and red minus. In your district, there's a lot of vendors on this list, and I would love to see your employer get rid of these companies, but that's a whole nother issue. So these are not great companies. Why? Well, here's just some of the reasons. Going left to right, they have mutual fund wrap programs, which adds fees. They give commissions to these sales agents. Again, I cannot emphasize enough, they are not financial planners. They are salespeople. There are back end, upfront surrender charges, some administration fees of over 1%. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I think you get the idea. The worst of the worst sell index annuity products. This is almost as much of a scheme as some crypto and maybe all cryptocurrency. They sell this piece of fiction. You can invest in the market and get all of the upside without any risk. Nonsense. Nonsense. Not possible. Okay. Avoid companies that sell these products, and I would say avoid those products. It's not just the fees, the sales tactics. And I'm going to show you a slide, and it actually makes me feel a little sorry for the people who work for AXA Equitable. Take a look at this. Scott found this. This is a disclosure document that they do not make widely available. If you work for Equitable, you must meet certain minimum sales requirements in proprietary insurance products to qualify for health and retirement benefits. Imagine that. Think of that incentive. You work for this company, you want to provide health insurance for yourself and your family, you want to have retirement benefits, well, then you have to foist their insurance products on you, the teachers. So whose interests are being served there? Not yours. Again, these are not fiduciary advisors. These are salespeople trolling your classrooms in schools. Doesn't stop there. They are, like all salespeople, trying to earn commissions and bonuses and trips. 2 years ago, they were not far from you folks. They were down in the Bahamas, and many of these salespeople are working actively to have you pay for their trip to Italy. Again, one of the reasons we are so happy to have Jill and her team engaged in this issue is, look at this. SEC charges VALIC financial advisors with failing to disclose payments to promote services to Florida educators. This is your state. Why would any Florida school district still allow this company to sell products? It's beyond me. Okay. Very recently, Equitable just paid a $50 million penalty to the SEC. Okay. Folks, why are school districts allowing this company to be sold to teachers? Do you think if the company that provides gas for your buses, supplies for your school, were fined $50 million, do you think the school board would let that company still sell products to your school district? Okay. This is the stuff that motivates me every day. It is so wrong, and it continues. Not enough people know about these fines. The teachers are getting money back, but you know what they're getting? About $30 each. Okay. All right, let's look at the yellow vendors. Okay, these are not terrible products by any means. You've got 2 of them available in your school district, and you can invest and pay a decent fee. We think 0.4% is fine. I would rather pay no more than 0.12%, but 0.40 is not horrible. These companies don't charge upfront or back-end commissions. This is to us, this is palatable, okay? Let's look at the green. So here's the green right in the middle there. Much better products, okay? Much more affordable products. We think any of these companies available are decent choices, but there's something even better, and you have one of those companies available. You have Fidelity. This is one of our 2 highest rated companies. And I will tell you, I have money with Fidelity and I have money with Vanguard. We receive no money from either company. 403BY sells no products. We are a nonprofit. We have no revenue beyond the generous support from Tim Ranzetta. So here is the good news. If I have some good news for you, it's that you have Fidelity available to you. So we assigned your district to C. That probably feels pretty harsh, right? Because you've got Fidelity. Well, the problem is most of you, your colleagues, have no idea who the good company is. It's only thanks to people like Aaron that you have at least one good low-cost choice. So until school districts clean up messy vendor lists like this, we're going to only give them a C. As I mentioned, we've graded close to 3,800 school districts, and the news is not good. We have only given 132 A's. To get an A, you have to put your plan out to bid. You have to do what 401k providers are required to do. See, we fall under different fiduciary standards than the 401k. If you worked for Coke and you ran the 401k like the 403b plan in your district, in the district, in the town I live, you would be sued. Okay. But unfortunately, the K-12 governmental 403b is not subject to something called ERISA. This is 1974 federal law, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And here's a little bit of trivia with the 403b. The 403b actually predates the 401k. The 403b was created in 1958. The 401k, 1978, 20 years later. But for some reason, they chose to apply the 401k to ERISA, but not the 403b. You can see in these statistics, most school districts have Cs. On one hand, I'm heartened that we know that so many school districts, so in this case, we're looking at about a little over 2,000. They have a good company, a green company. The problem is most of those school districts are not putting on these kind of workshops. So those teachers are walking into the staff lounge and someone has sandwiches and they're signing up for the high cost products. So super frustrating. All right, let's go back to our question. The answers were provided. You were correct. It is fees. Let me show you in more detail. But first, let me show you the type of investment they were in. And Jill already went over this, but I'll just show it to you one more time. This is one of my favorite ways for beginners to invest. It's been called the fire and forget or the one fund solution. You just pick one mutual fund aimed at a date in the future you think you're going to retire. Doesn't mean you have to retire at that date, but it's a way to target when you're going to need the money. So here we are in the year 2023, and I'm a young teacher. I can hardly remember what it was like to be a young teacher. And I think I might need this money in 2060. So I get a 2060 target date fund, and I'll get it from Fidelity because they're such a great company. If you look at these pie charts, the orange represents the stock allocation. So stocks can be much more risky in the short term, but over time, stocks give you your best chance to really grow your money. Your best friend is time. Time is the great benefactor because it smooths out the ups and downs of the market. So you can see automatically, the closer you get to 2060, the safer the allocation comes. By the time you get to 2060, you can see there's a bigger portion of the investments are allocated towards safer fixed investments. You do not want to be 1 or 2 years from retirement and have 80% of your money in stocks. Not that long ago, the market dropped more than 30% in 1 year. So this is a way to protect you when you get close to retirement. So both these teachers have the exact same kind of product. All assumptions were the same. However, one teacher came into his or her staff lounge at lunch, and there was the equitable AXA, quote unquote, financial professional peddling products. In this case, with the 2045 allocation fund, they also have a 2060 allocation fund. They charge 2.1%. Now, 2.1% doesn't look that bad, right? Who wouldn't mind having a mortgage that only charged 2.1%? I would love that. Who wouldn't mind inflation being 2.1%? I would love that. But when it comes to fees, and Jill touched on this, you do not want to be paying 2.1% in fees. Now, look at the difference here. Teacher 2 had come to Aaron's workshop and knew that Fidelity was such a good company. And this person invested in the Fidelity Freedom Index 2045 Investor Fund, which charges 0.12%. Folks, this is a $300,000 difference, okay? Massive amount. There is no way that that advisor is providing $300,000. Oh, Aaron, look at this. News just in. It's even lower, 0.08. Aaron, I need to update our presentation for next time. That is even better, okay? Folks, that is how you invest. Low cost fees. Fees matter. 2.1 versus 0.12, cross out, versus 0.08. Okay. Again, you have people working in your district who have your best interest in mind. I am so happy when I can speak to a school district where you actually have a good choice. It's heartbreaking when I speak to a school district and say, you folks need to advocate for Fidelity, for Vanguard. I'll often say for these people, don't even do the 403b. Start a Roth IRA with Fidelity or Vanguard. Then lobby your school district to add a low-cost choice. So please avoid the $306,830 or $382 mistake. And please tell your colleagues. Lots of your colleagues were not able to make it today. Make it your mission, especially make it your vow for 403b day to let 2 of your colleagues know that they should avoid those high-cost companies. Dawn, do not get mad at yourself, okay? Nobody told you. This is a reaction I often hear from teachers. They start blaming themselves. Why would you blame yourself? Your teacher credential program did not teach you this. Your employer did not do a workshop when you got hired on this. Again, you're lucky to have Aaron. One of our goals, and if you have any contacts at your teacher credentialing program, we will do free presentations like this. Our goal, we would love if every teacher right now studying to become a teacher had this information before they walked on a campus. Oh my gosh, they would be in such better shape. Also, school districts around the country are struggling to hire teachers. Teachers should use this leverage. If I was looking for a job right now, the 403b would be one of the prime factors I would consider. You're right. Onboarding. This should be part of onboarding. You know what they do at San Francisco Unified? Equitable does the education. How do you think that goes for the teachers? It's infuriating. So, folks, if you ask me, the choice is clear. Just a few more slides. So you have 457B choices. You only need to know about one. Okay. You are so lucky to have Fidelity. Now, Vanguard, as of now, does not have a 457. So Vanguard, I have a feeling they're going to be adding one because I think they're seeing the advantage of these. There is nothing wrong with, I think Aaron might have posted this, but there is nothing wrong with using a financial advisor, but it's the right kind of financial advisor you want to use. So what I just posted was a link to the to information on the right kind of advisor. We describe what that is. As I mentioned, they must pledge to put your interests first. And within that link, we have the questions to ask. We have 20 questions you should ask any advisor. We have it so you can download it as a PDF, send it off to them and say, before I work with you, answer these questions. We also have literally created a pledge that you can print out and they have to sign, and it says you pledge to act as a fiduciary. So feel free to use that. So let's say you're watching this presentation and you're like, oh shit, I'm with Equitable. Here's what you do. Stop contributing. Open an account with a new vendor. Direct all contributions to the new vendor, then begin the process of transferring dollars from the old vendor to the new vendor. You see that asterisk. In all likelihood, there are going to be surrender charges. Some companies sadly impose rolling surrender charges. So you might, let's just say we're investing with a company for 10 years, and after 5 years, there's no longer surrender charges. That's all great. So all the money you've been investing at least 5 years ago is much easier to transfer. But the rolling surrender charges are imposed on every new contribution. So if you contributed today, since it's the first work day of the month, that contribution would be locked for 5 years. 5 years. It is infuriating. Some of them are longer, 10, 15 years, okay? This is why we do what we do. It just angers us so much that these companies are doing this to education employees. So that's what you're going to want to do. And it can be very frustrating having to go through this. So what I'm going to give you is 2 of our most popular resources, a link. The first one is called How to Get Out of a Bad 403b. It walks you through the process. Within that story is our single most popular story, How to Get Out of AXA Equitable, because they have their own dynamics. I hate to tell you this for people who are in it. They purposely put barriers in front of you. But I'm here to tell you, I am personally aware of, I would say, hundreds, if not getting close to 1,000 teachers who have successfully gotten out. And the way I know this is our 403b Wise Facebook group. I highly encourage you to join it. We have close to 12,000 members. The number one question is, well, this is usually how it goes. Hi, I'm new. I feel so stupid. Again, it's not your fault. You have no reason to feel bad. Now, if you sign up with Equitable tomorrow after this presentation, I don't know what to tell you, okay? But normally when people first post, they say, oh my gosh, I'm so upset. I just found out I'm in one of the bad companies. How do I get out of Equitable? and all of a sudden 10 people will jump in. You can do this. Here's how you do it. They'll probably post these resources. So it's really nice to have this whole group that you can update periodically. And again, I don't want to make, especially on a Monday, probably after having spring break, I don't want to raise your anxiety level, but I want you to know what you're going to be facing. But here's what I'm going to tell you, and maybe it'll give you a sense of satisfaction. It's so easy, and Aaron can tell you how to do it, to go to your school district, fill out a new salary reduction agreement, and stop that payment. And that's got to be satisfying. That company is getting no more of my money. And let's say you sign up with the green vendor, and then takes a month or so, and all of a sudden your money starts going in there. That's got to feel satisfying. And that money that you already put in, it's out there. We often tell teachers, don't even begin to look into transferring it until the summer. Okay. I personally know how tough your job is, especially when you get to the spring. It's been a long year. So patience is sort of I would say, the way to proceed. All right. Just a couple more things. Not every teacher in your district attended today. So your job is to help to get them interested in this topic. And in order to do that, we created a special podcast series. It's 5 episodes. It's called Learned by Being Burned, Teachers in the K-12 403b. It's available on all major podcast outlets, 30-minute episodes. We didn't produce it. We paid a company to produce it. So I can say without hesitation, it is fantastic. My wife and son collaborated on the logo, which I think is really, dare I say, fire. This is the story told by teachers. I'm in this a little bit. Scott's in this a little bit, but you're going to hear the voice of teachers who got burned and then they learned. Episode 5, we interview a benefits official from Montgomery County Public Schools who started the process of taking their vendor list from 15 down to 1. Their one vendor, Fidelity. Think about that school district. If I was to present to them, no one's going to say, oh, damn, I'm stuck in Equitable, okay? Because their district did the right thing. And I'm not saying this to start getting everyone mad at your district, because your district has Aaron, okay? And I wish every district had that. But I also think as professionals, as educators, we should all care about this issue. Because if you have Fidelity, that's great. But I feel like the school district next door to you and the state next door to you, all teachers should have good choices. I'm very passionate about that. Okay, a couple more things. We put out a weekly Be Wise alert, and we would love to have you join. We have almost 3,000 people subscribed to this. It is no cost, but it's a way to stay up to date. We don't use your email for anything. You'd get an email that looks like this. If those look interesting, click it. If not, trash it. We do not spam you. So what we usually do is I write a blog post. Since today is 403b day, I talked about the fact I was going to speak at your district. I talked about Aaron. I talked about Jill. I don't know if Aaron and Jill know that, but you were mentioned in my blog today. And then we always highlight a school district that we've graded. And this Wisconsin district has 2 vendors. They have a very low cost vendor created actually by their union that sells Vanguard products. And then they have Equitable. And then I like to do a sort of an investing story. And this one I posted the link to in the chat. It's catch-up strategies for late start investors. And that's to questions. But before we do that, Aaron, I just want to show one thing. So I am going to stop presenting, and then let's see if I can share again. There we go. So here is our website. Just to give you a quick lay of the land, if you ever want to contact me, right here will come to me. But we've built in our ratings plan here. If you click this, it'll give you that information that I just showed you. And by clicking info, you can hover over the information. And then if you, I hope this doesn't make people sick, but I'm scrolling fast here. You can see like, how do you get an A? How do you get a B? And then, we have an example, like, how great is that? Look at that. One choice. And we just added this. And for some reason, it's not showing up on all the districts, but if it's a green vendor, we've added a check there. So here we are at the beginning. And let's say somebody that works in California and they happen to work in the school district where I live in the city. You can check it right here. And let me show you how bad. They always say you're never a prophet in your own town. Look at this. Look what teachers in my district have to deal with. Now, there are 3 good ones, but where most of the money is going. It's going to these other companies. Again, this is why they have a C. We do a weekly Teach and Retire Rich podcast. I posted the link to the interview we did with Aaron. Jill, I think we still are supposed to be interviewing you, so let's talk about that. Here again is that story, how to get out of a bad 403b. If you click education, we have all kinds of resources for you, the basics, who's eligible, how much can you contribute, how do I start, all that kind of stuff. And then you might find this very valuable, accessing a 403b. When can you begin to take this money out? What about borrowing? So all of those kind of details we have right there. And then that's about it. You can see we've been lucky to be mentioned in these different media outlets. We have some videos. Oh, we do a free Q&A session at the beginning of every month. It was supposed to be this week, but Scott, my partner, is in Hawaii. Can you believe that? The audacity of him to take his teacher wife, who's on spring break, to Hawaii. But if you click here, you just sign up. It's free. And all as it is questions for an hour. And as I said earlier, Scott will be part of this, and he's the one really good at answering questions. All right, enough of me. I will do my best to answer any questions.
Real quickly, before we get to the question.
Oop, I lost
Sorry, I got muted. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so Don, we'll get to you first of the questions, but let me just, first of all, we're 2 minutes till 6. So if anybody, so first of all, huge thank you to Dan. That was phenomenal. Huge thank you to Jill. That was just, again, as good as a presentation on the 403b as you're going to hear anywhere. I can say that with a lot of confidence. So if you need to log off, by all means, log off. I realize it's getting late in the evening. I'm going to tie up a few loose ends here on a couple of things that were said in the presentations for about 5 minutes, and then we'll open it up to more of a Q&A for those of you who would like to stay for a couple of Q&A. But otherwise, if you've heard and seen enough and you need to check out, go ahead and check out. First of all, I'm going to follow up tomorrow with some of the documents that we talked about in the presentations that we talked about here. Also included in those documents is I did create a document that talks about how to, it's called a contract exchange from one 403b vendor to another. It's a very difficult process. I hate to break it to you, but it is just not an easy process. That's just going to be upfront with you. And it varies vendor by vendor. So there's not like one set way to do it. So I did create like a generic, here's how to do a contract exchange in Scotia Palm Beach County, but I will just be upfront and tell you it's probably still going to be a difficult process, and you just have to be very persistent with it. And then I also did a specific one because probably the most requested one I get is how do I move from equitable to fidelity? And so I did a specific one exactly on that. And that's not me endorsing that. That's just me because that's the most requested one that I get. So I went ahead and did that. And, ultimately our goal here is for you to have a clear picture, is for you to, before you make any decisions, or if you've already made the decisions, to figure out how you want to sort of, what changes you want to make. But before you do any of that, it's best to have, like Jill said, you're making a $500,000 decision here. You should probably have sometimes a better idea of what the full picture is. So that's sort of what our purpose of doing this is. With that being said, Jill referenced a couple times TSACG. Just real quickly, that stands for TSA Consulting Group. They are what's called our district's TPA, which stands for third party administrator. Not to introduce any more difficulties into the situation, but the district does not maintain your accounts. They do not maintain your funds. Your funds and who maintains and make sure like they're following IRS regulations, they farm it out. Every district in the country pretty much does this. And who our third-party administrator is TSA Consulting Group. So in case you ever want to know, if you ever see something from TSACG or who is that, that's who that is. They're the third-party administrator that maintains the accounts. They're also the ones who maintain the vendor list, which we have 17 or so vendors. This is, I hear all the time too, why doesn't the district ever give us any information? And I agree. There should be more educational sessions, especially not ones done directly by the salespeople who are selling some of these products. But they do. They send you these. I know you all get these on your desks, and I know they go straight in your trash cans. All right, but these get shared with you every single year. All right, this has, you see on the front, it says Omni. It's TSACG merged with Omni, another third-party administrator. They give this to you every single year, in which it's got information about 403b plans in our district and all the specific rules. And someone asked earlier about borrowing from it. It's in this book about how you can borrow from your 403b plan, and all the specifics about 403b and 457b plans is in that book. So you can also access that on the district's retirement website. They have like digital copies of that as well. Dan mentioned earlier, the first thing you should do if you think you're in a really bad 403b, if you determine that, is stop contributing to it. You can do that yourself very easily. That's done through PeopleSoft. Right? You can just go on PeopleSoft into somewhere in self-service under retirement plans. I don't have it in front of me right now. And literally all you have to do is, if you want to take it to zero, just hit delete. If you hit delete, that does not delete your account. Everybody always thinks, it deletes it. It doesn't delete it. It just deletes the contributions to the account. Right, so you are able to do that yourself. And same with a Fidelity 403b. If you determine with all your education that you want to open up a 403b account with Fidelity, guess what? You can do it yourself. You don't need a person to open that account for you. They give you the plan code. I think that was in one of Dan's slides. All you need is the plan code. That means when you go to the 403, the Fidelity's website, which is the link in PeopleSoft, they give you the link to it right there in PeopleSoft. All you have to do is put in that plan code. That plan code then will link your account to the school district of Palm Beach County. And that's literally as simple as that. I mean, you then have to go in and pick your investments and all that. So it's not terribly simple, but it's as simple as that to open it. So I just wanted to let you know that as well. Jill mentioned about the rolling surrender charge. I just read your email. So Don asked about rolling surrender charge earlier. Jill said that yes, indeed, there are some companies that do that every single new contribution, they add a new surrender charge onto that new contribution. So I just wanted to follow up with that. And finally, the last thing I will say, thank you, Dan. Dan's got the plan number right there. And then the last thing I'll say is if anybody wants, like I said, if you want this, email me. I'm glad it's got phenomenal information from the SEC about investing specifically for educators, for teachers, for you. Really good information. I highly suggest reading. It's very easy to read, easily digestible. And also, Dan won't do this because he's working for a nonprofit, but he did write a book called Teach and Retire Rich that I have copies of. So some of you I know I've given copies to it before who have attended presentations. If anybody who has made it until 6:04 p.m. on a Monday night wants a copy, email me. I will gladly pony you a copy. All right. So be on the lookout I'll follow up with how you can potentially earn PD points and stuff like that for this. I'll follow up with that email tomorrow. And don't forget, on the 13th, we have another session that's going to focus more specifically on investing. We'll have Dan, who will be here with his partner, Scott Dowenhauer, who, like you said, is a CFP and does a lot of work with 403Bs. He's very knowledgeable. And we will also have Lisa, who's from the Miami office of the SEC, to do a presentation on that as well. So I really hope you can join us for that. And then the 17th, I told you, we'll do the in-person one. We'll focus a very basic one on some FRS and Florida retirement system questions. All right, Don, you're first up with your question. Sorry.
Okay. First, I want to say, Jill, you have the best last name.
I know.
Anyway, Dan, I was going to ask, can you contribute that $60,000 or a big chunk all at once, or does it have to come out of paychecks?
Paychecks. Yeah, it's got to come out of your paycheck. Now, you can do what a few teachers we know do. They have basically zeroed out their paycheck. So let's just say your monthly pay is $4,000. They have upped it to $4,000 for a month, and some people a year. In fact, the teacher I'm thinking of, what he and his wife do is they periodically take a year off from teaching. They then live on their 457b money because they end up moving districts. They're a little bit of outliers. They're in Georgia and they go from district to district. But yes, and so you could do it on a monthly basis where you really crank it up. You could do it over a whole year, but of course you would need money to live on. But it does have to come out of your paycheck.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I
That
just
goes
wanted to add something really quick on that. There's something called a salary reduction agreement, and Aaron, are you going to cover that? I'll just stop talking.
That's what I was going to say. So go ahead and talk about it.
I think it's better if you do it because you know specifically how they can get there. So
Yeah, and that's literally exactly what I was going to say when I was going to talk. Yeah, the salary reduction agreement is done through PeopleSoft. So the salespeople will make it seem like they have a paper form because they have to seem like they're there to actually do something. So they'll make you fill out a form and sign it. In reality, you can do the salary reduction agreement directly through PeopleSoft. And yes, that is the only way to fund a 403b is through salary reduction. There's no other way to fund a 403b. And that, Richard, I see your question about the rep, and I see that Jill answered it. Maureen Toolan's a phenomenal resource. She works for the district. She's our HR tech who deals with 403b resources. She will be like the generic, how do I do a salary reduction agreement and things like that. But if you're talking specific to your vendor, you might want to unmute yourself and talk. You will have to look up on PeopleSoft that has who each rep is for the vendors. I don't know if you want to unmute and ask that. Maybe not. That's okay. But for anybody else who's on here, Maureen Toolan, if you have general 403b questions, she's a great resource. It's just maureen.toolan at palmbeachschools.org. She's helped me in a lot of issues and helped me get answers to a lot of questions that I've had.
hey, Aaron, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Can you, as a teacher, can you direct your own investing for every single investment choice? Or do some require a rep?
Yeah, some require a rep. Yep, that's going to be vendor by vendor.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and your PeopleSoft, you can go there and there be some restrictions, like it won't. Okay.
Yeah, and
that's
yeah,
tricky. Oh,
it's very tricky. And Fidelity is the only one who will give you the plan number up front. All the other ones make you call a rep to get the plan number.
It seems like our county should only have Fidelity.
But I will say this though, our district is looking at it. It's not easy. We have 20,000 plus employees. We have a legacy system in place. We have powerful insurance companies within our vendor list. So it's not an easy fix. But you can take some solace in the fact that some of these discussions have been had with the people that need to be had with, and they are deeply looking at this issue right now. I can tell you that with confidence. Whether anything will be done, I can't tell you that with any confidence, but I'm very confident that they are looking into these issues right now. So that's good. Would anybody else like to, before we go here, now that we're at 6:11, does anybody else have any questions? I see Maddie had a question, but I think she logged off. So, oh no, she's still on. I see Maddie, you say, I have a traditional 403b, but would like to change it to a Roth before retiring. There's going to be some serious tax implications to that. I wish Scott were on. I have stopped contributing it. How do I change it? Yeah, so you have to, I don't know that you're going to want to move your traditional 403b to a Roth. I don't know. Dan, do you want to talk about that at all?
Well, what you could do is start all the new contributions could be Roth contributions. It's not either or. We talk a lot about investing diversification, but I'm really starting to pay more attention to tax diversification. So for me personally, I have a 403b. I contribute on a pre-tax basis, but I also have Roth money too. So I like that I'm going to have two buckets to draw from in retirement. So Maddie, you can even split your paycheck. It could be, let's just say you do $200 a month. 100 could go to the Fidelity pre-tax, 100 could go to the Fidelity Roth, or you could do 200 to a Roth. Just know that you're going to be paying a little more taxes now, but you could also do, just right now, just go all Roth if you want.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, because like Aaron said, there's going to be some cost. You can't just all of a sudden take money that you already got the pre-tax benefit. So let's say you have $10,000 in there. That probably might have saved you $2,000 in taxes. Okay, real ballpark figure. You're going to have to go back and pay the government that. So it starts to get complex. So you might be better off just right now really ramping up the Roth contributions.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll second what Dan. That's again, I'm just giving you this as an example of what if I'm not giving this as advice, but what a fellow educator has done. I'm the same way as Dan just said. I have my own personal IRA, which is fully Roth. I only contribute Roth dollars to my IRA, and then I have a 403b, which is fully pre-tax. It's a traditional 403b. So yeah, you could do what Dan just said. You could stop contributing and then just open up a Roth account. But then if you want to move that money, you'd have to move it into another traditional 403b. So you'd have to perform what's called a contract exchange and move it into another traditional 403b, and then open up a separate Roth account if you are looking to fund a Roth account.
What is the difference between the Roth and a regular savings account? Because you're actually paying the taxes up front on both.
Well, they're very different investments. You're talking about like a bank savings account?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very, very different types of accounts. One's an employer-based account, the 403b. The other is a personal savings account. So you're right. You don't get that. You can't do a Roth savings account. So you don't get that advantage of taking money out in retirement from a savings account and not paying taxes. But I would argue everyone should have a savings account. We always talk about two big buckets of money. One is money you need if you needed it tomorrow for a car repair. And then the other bucket is your retirement money you would need down the road.
Do you think that's a great idea?
What's that?
The savings account.
I do. I really do. And also, I always mention this, and I forgot this time, but if anyone's looking for a book, Aaron was very nice to mention my book, but if you want to learn more about saving, the psychology, I don't know if it's backwards or not, it is on my screen, but The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Aaron and Jill, I don't know if you know this, he now has a podcast. He just started in March. It is just fabulous. It is so good. The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, we actually gave that book out last year at our financial literacy boot camp. That was one of the books we gave out. It's really so I may have some extra copies if I'll see. I'll look around and see if I have any extra copies around.
Okay, I've already sent you an email to send, so you can add all that in there.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you so much.
No
Thank you, Dan.
Oh, happy to help. Thank you for being a teacher.
Thank you.
All right, would anybody else like to unmute themselves and ask the questions as we have the professionals on the line?
Hi, I had a question.
Yeah.
I have about probably 25, 30 years left. So where would you recommend, like I have a Roth IRA, but I'm looking to get more into 403b. What, I guess, pre-Roth or Roth or traditional, like what account would you recommend putting the biggest chunk in?
If Scott was here, he would say depends. And he would say, do you need the upfront tax break now? You know, does it really advantage you and your family to pay lower taxes now? Or is that not as important? And if that's the case, the Roth is favored. I'm for splitting it because you just don't know. Scott talks about having a lot of clients. Well, let me back up. Traditionally, people, the thinking is you're going to have less money in retirement because your pension, you're not going to get 100% of your pension in retirement. You're going to get a percentage. So chances are you're not going to be drawing as much money in retirement as you are now. So the thinking has always been do the pre-tax. But what Scott's finding is because teachers have a pension, a 403b, a 457b, a Roth IRA, they are almost drawing more money in retirement. And then they wish they had more Roth money. It's just impossible to know the future. So one thing, why don't you go 50-50? That might be the best way to do it. And then in 5 years, if you get the sense that the Roth is better for you, then go 100% Roth. That gives you flexibility, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I was channeling Scott for you guys. He's in Hawaii. I think I told you. He's retired rich. That picture you showed of the cover, that's Scott. Sorry.
Why did Scott say that teachers are finding out that they need more Roth money? Because of the taxes?
They're actually, a lot of his clients have lived in the same house in California for 30 years. So they've paid off their houses. They don't have any other tax breaks. California has a pretty generous pension system, but in California, we don't have Social Security. And because Scott's their clients, a lot of these teachers have really good 403bs. And with a 403b, you have to begin making withdrawals. I think it's 72 now. It's called required minimum withdrawals. So you have to take that money out, and you're going to pay taxes when you hit 72, and the rest of your life. You have to pay taxes on that. But if it's Roth money, you're not paying taxes. So
yeah,
what is that percentage for that distribution that you have to take?
It's basically 4%, I think. Does that sound right? I think it's about 4% of your balance they require you to take out. Let me search real quick. I might be able to find a story on this.
And didn't the age just go up with Secure Act 2.0?
Yeah, I think it's going up to 75.
Yeah, I think it is.
75?
And I will say this too about the Roth is to channel Morgan Housel for a second. A lot of times psychologically, it's better to pay the taxes now.
Because you might be a higher bracket later.
You never know, and tax rates might change later. You can't predict what's going to happen with tax rates in the future. So just psychologically to know that you've got, because remember, it's tax-free. You're not going to pay taxes on it again. So just to know that you have all this tax-free income available to you is psychologically powerful.
It's like paying for a vacation before you go on it. You can relax a lot more.
Thank you.
You got it. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. See you soon.